Hi, my name is Frankie. Thank you for listening to my mom. I never listen.
Welcome to the podcast, Nothing But Net. Head coach Todd Starkey, my longtime friend who's the head coach at Kent State, who continues to put a team on the floor that represents a product that we all love watching. And that is a team that's balanced, but we're going to talk a little offense, obviously. Todd, thank you for being with us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I appreciate you having me.
Man, you know, your journey a little bit like step by step. You've been through a lot of different opportunities to get to where you are now. Kind of break it down for us a little bit about where you got started and how you ended up here at Kent State.
Yeah, I mean, how did I end up here, right? It's sometimes you have those days like, how did this happen? But just got into coaching because I knew I wasn't done with basketball after I was done playing, and it just the most influential people in my life growing up, other than my parents, were coaches, and just had such an impact on me, and I just kind of was, I didn't choose it; it kind of chose me. I think, really, started out small schools in North Carolina, NAIA at Montreat College as a men's assistant, almost a volunteer coach, really, and then at Lenore Rhine, Division II in Hickory, North Carolina, as a men's assistant, and then had the opportunity and a women's head tennis coach, and then had the opportunity to be named as the head women's basketball coach at Lenore Rhine by my former boss, Neil McGahee, gave me an opportunity when I'm not sure I really even knew what the heck I was doing. So, and gave me the space to grow, and just kind of, just went after it, and worked hard, and tried to surround myself with good people on the way up, so to speak. Got involved more heavily involved in the WBCA, and got in the right rooms with people that were a lot smarter than me, with more experience, and got some great advice from Charlie Turner Thorne after one of those meetings. And she told me that I needed to have people that were willing to speak on my behalf before I asked them to. And then I needed some great female mentors. And I took that to heart and really started to develop that circle, and have developed some great relationships because of that. Got an opportunity to go to Indiana with Terry Moore in her first couple years at IU, and learned a ton, and doing scouting reports for the Big Ten, and grew as a coach as well, and really got to see what this level Division One really was about, and how to kind of streamline an approach to developing a team, choosing a team, putting teams together, really pouring into your players and your staff. Then was afforded the opportunity to be here at Kent State, and that was 9 years ago, and we've just been able to retain players and retain staff, and that continuity, I think, has bred consistent success.
I want to talk about retaining and recruiting because it's such an important part of the game right now, right? You have been able to retain your players. You have been able to keep your staff. You've done a good job of building that, what I would say has become somewhat cliche in our game, culture and identity. I think people talk a lot about it, but they don't really define it. Everyone wants to play fast. Everyone wants to do this. But when it comes to creating the kind of habits that you need to have to be successful on and off the floor, take a little bit of time and tell us about retention and recruitment.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first piece of that is you have to have a really good staff. I think, and that knows what works for you, right? And so, when my assistant coaches come to me and they say, "Coach, this is a player you you want to coach, that works for you, that's your type of player." That means they know, because I think they see players that they would like to coach, but they understand that they have to fit into the context of what I'm looking for and how we put things together. So we've had very little turnover on our staff, and that has been an incredible blessing. Fran Reiki has been our associate head coach here since I've been here, and she's phenomenal. She's the fact that she hasn't gotten picked off for a Division I head coaching job at this point, or a Power Five assistant, people just aren't paying attention, in my opinion, for that one, because she's so good, and so consistent. But then the other piece of that, on a deeper level of that, is I learned along the way that you can't cut corners or take too many flyers on players that may or may not fit your culture, right? Regardless of how talented they are, and all
Mhm.
those coaches fall victim to that, being like, I can change them, right? If I can just get them here. I
Yeah.
mean, they're really talented, but then you see evidence that whether it's an attitude or they're self-focused, um, they need the validation from other people all the time, those type of things. You can find clues in their social media. You can find clues in as we're watching an AAU, like how do they I watch players when they come off the court, especially after a frustrating moment, how they handle those situations. Are they still able to be
Mhm.
coached? Do they put their I mean, I'm not saying that people don't have frustrating moments, but are there some consistent threads? Do they put their head in the towel and are not engaged in what their teammates are doing? And putting your teammates first is the number one quality in being a good teammate. And so we look for all that. How do they engage with their parents? When they're off the court, I watch players as they're moving around a facility, and how do they continue to
Right.
engage with their teammates? Do they listen to their parents? We watch parents in the stands, right? So if it's really easy to figure out who a kid's parents are, that might not be a good thing, unless they're shouting encouragement, right? And
Right.
so all those things factor in because they have to be a part of something bigger than themselves in order for a group to be cohesive. And we've really done a good job of evaluating that and bringing and this last year and this year's team are kind of the synthesis of all that coming together. We just have a really good team. So we didn't lose anybody. Went to the NCAA tournament last year for the first time in 22 years and had zero transfers out. So I'm probably as proud of that as the championship. Well, close. So
Exactly.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So it's been gratifying to see that happen.
This is a great little segue into what I want to ask you next because all the things that you're talking about on my mind recently has been the Draft Day movie with Kevin Costner, where he's the GM of the Browns and he's got the number one pick. And the number one pick, everybody thinks is this quarterback. And there's something about the quarterback that Kevin Costner can't quite put his finger on, but he's
I
the
love
only
it. I love
one,
it. Yep.
right? And then he finds out later that his instincts were right. I think you have to have some instinct about that. You have to be around it enough to have a feel and to know that there's something off about that player. I'm not quite sure what it is. There's a couple of things that are starting to pile up. I can recognize it. I hear it in the way they speak. I watch the way they interact. I do the same thing with players on the floor, especially when it's coming close to WNBA draft time. I think there's a lot that goes into making a pick and a selection.
Uh,
Anyway, it's
yeah,
okay. So
100%.
movies.
I love that movie. I really do. I've always and that's kind of I think one of the things that is I'm most passionate about and why like when I was on the playground as a kid, I loved being I loved being a captain because I love picking teams. Like who are the people I want to play with
Yeah.
and go into battle with and I love that movie for that in that trying to find that nuance to how this play knowing your team, right? And what is going to fit with what you have
Yeah.
and how that looks. What I love the quote. Sometimes you can have a talented player on your team, right? If or you're recruiting a talented player and they go someplace else and they may beat you twice a year, but if you have them on your team, they beat you every day. Right, having the wrong personality or the wrong fit on your team, they can beat
Yeah.
you every day in practice. They can beat your team every day in those situations, and maybe they have a great game against you when you play them in conference play or someplace else and they beat you once, but they don't beat you every day. And so I think that's a really such a powerful thing is to really know who you are as a coach, know what your program is built on and what personalities are within your team and what's going to fit within that and make sure that you make those decisions.
Coach, leader, educator, all of those things would file under there. I love that. I love the way you said that. Can't let them beat you every day. They might beat you once or twice, but good point. Okay, so movies, show business. And then there's your son, Drew Starkey. Many people watching may not be aware of who your son is, but I know they've seen him. They just may not know that they've seen him. I've got a chance to have breakfast with you and Drew. Drew is such a nice young man. He is nothing like the characters that he portrays, especially the character that he portrays in Outer Banks. People that have watched Outer Banks, Rafe Cameron, the bad boy son in the movie. I've been recently trying to catch up because I knew I was going to see you, and I'm watching Drew, and I just can't believe he's your kid. I mean, he doesn't. Nothing about the way that actor.
Why? Because he's a handsome kid. That's right.
Well,
You're like,
he's
I can't
handsome
believe you
for
came
sure.
from that guy.
I've had lots of people say to me, "You know Drew Starkey?" I'm like, "Yes, I have met him," and they're usually young women that want to know how I know Drew Starkey. Tell us about Drew a little bit and his upbringing and how he's ended up where he is, Todd.
Yeah, I mean, Drew firstborn of four kids, and my kids are all very close in age, but also in relationship. And Drew grew up kind of a soft-spoken, humble kid in Hickory, North Carolina. Started in Black Mountain Elementary School in Black Mountain, North Carolina. Then we moved to Hickory when I got a coaching job at Lenore Ryan. But Drew is a humble kid. I mean, he's making a lot more money than me right now, and he's probably still just assumes shop at Goodwill or a thrift store, drives a Toyota Tacoma truck, and he's just that's the type of kid he is. But he was a great student, unlike his dad growing up, and he was very motivated in literature and in writing, and was always very it was a really good high school basketball player. I think his 3-point field goal percentage his senior year in high school was like over 45%. He could really shoot the basketball, and so could his younger brother Logan, who's a musician in Nashville. So we had an artistic family. He had the opportunity to play small college basketball, but wanted to be in a little bit bigger setting. Ended up going to Western Carolina and had a great experience there, and had the power of words. Right, so he was in a class. He was an English major. Wanted to be a screenwriter, right, and wanted to write movies. Had done some theater. Was in I think a writing for theater class his sophomore year, I believe it was. And a professor said, "Hey, you get extra credit if you go out for a school production." He goes out for the school production because he wanted extra credit, because that's how we thought, right?
Yeah.
Ended up getting the lead role. And as he was practicing for this lead role, the professor, the power of words, right, and pouring into people, said, "Hey, I think you really got something here. I've worked with actors for over 30 years. I think you should think about majoring in theater and making this
No
your
way.
profession." And he's like, wow. And so like the next day he went to his advisor and decided, didn't drop English, but added theater, a double major, and really started to pursue it. And
That's
he really is focused on perfecting his craft. I mean, I think he really wants to be a great artist, and has done a great job of that. But I'm really proud of the way he's handled all of this. I mean, I think he's over 5.1 million Instagram followers now, which is just that in this younger generation, that's how they define fame, is how many
yeah.
followers you have, right? So
Five
so
point one million. That's
5.1 million,
woo.
yes. But he's only posted on Instagram 11 times. That
Wow.
ought to tell you something, right? Is like
Yeah.
he's not an attention seeker. He just assumed not
Yeah.
get attention, but is great with fans and tries to make time for everyone. And I'm just proud of the person he is more than what he's done in his profession, for sure.
Well, thanks to you, you've been able to connect us with Drew for 24 hours, nothing but net, and we look forward to having both of you guys back in May. You're
Yeah,
going to
for sure.
actually perform on the live stream, and so we love to have live music and live acts. You're going to be one of the live acts. Tell us a little bit about your artistic background, because this is a big treat for us to be able to get you on the live stream.
Well, I have to say, the artistic side of things in my family comes from my dad. Both my parents were preachers' kids. My mom grew up in India on the mission field, with my grandfather was a missionary in India. My father grew up in also a preacher's kid, but grew up in church choirs and all that type of thing, and graduated high school at 16. Went to Juilliard in New York City when he was 16, and was on Broadway in the 50s, and really kind of came up that way. And so my both of my sons and my dad have a great relationship. My dad's 93, still alive and doing well. But my dad really had a lot of influence over us growing up. I took piano lessons and violin lessons when I was a kid. Hated every single minute of it. But it established a background for me, a love for music ultimately, and I kind of passed that on to my kids as they were young. I wanted them to be well-rounded and experience a lot of things. You never know what your kids are going to be passionate about. A lot of times parents want your kids to be passionate about what you're passionate about. I
Yeah.
just wanted them to be exposed to a lot of things so they could find their passion, and they did. And they played sports growing up, but their passion they found their passion in the arts, but they're big sports fans. They love basketball and love following dad and what we're doing with Kent State women's basketball too.
Tell us a little bit about Logan, what his music career is like. Because I didn't know your dad went to Juilliard. I knew that you had a artistic and a preacher background too, Todd. You got it all working to be a coach. I mean, this is all perfect. Game, science, and art. You've got the preacher background, so you keep everybody together. You know what family
Try.
means. I mean, you got all the requisites that you need.
I've been really blessed to have a well-rounded upbringing, and I, you know, to whom much is given, much is required, right? And I've been blessed with a lot, so I feel that responsibility to try and pay it forward. But Logan, I'll try and be quick with this, but great story with Logan. Older brother Drew made basketball every single year, and dad's a college coach in town. Logan gets cut from basketball his seventh grade year, devastating for him. And I'd already started teaching him some guitar, and he really took to it. And I said, "All right, bud, let's get you guitar lessons." And that setback, that painful setback in the seventh grade, allowed him to really jump into and focus on something that he really loved, and he got better than his guitar teacher by the end of the eighth grade. Went out for basketball eighth grade year, got cut again. Went out for basketball in the ninth grade year, got cut again. He finally made the team. He kept going out. I mean, you talk
Wow.
about resilience. As tough as the basketball world is, that prepared him for music, because that is the most fickle, enterprise you want to go into is the music business. It's very cutthroat, and it's all about marketing, flavor of the day. There's less talented people that get marketed better that do. There's some amazing musicians floating around Nashville and these other cities that nobody they put on some of the best concerts in people's living rooms, and nobody's ever heard of them.
There's a
Just
lot of
phenomenal,
industries like that, Todd.
phenomenal artists, right? And
Yes.
so I have a passion for seeking out people who are incredibly talented, who are go under recognized, and just I love watching people do something that they're just incredible. There's no greater joy in my life than to sit around and listen to Logan play the guitar and sing, and I would think his siblings, all three of his siblings, would say the same thing. We are the biggest Logan Starkey fan, on the planet. And so Drew sings and plays the piano a little bit, and we get together and do stuff when our family's together, and it's a lot of it's focused on music, not athletics.
It's such a perfect combination and segue for what you said earlier about too much is given, much is expected, and it's your opportunity to give back. You're doing that through 24 hours, nothing but net, serving an underserved population in Special Olympics. You're also doing that through the KL Cancer Fund and your participation in the golf tournament, your Play for K games, all the things that you're doing there. That is to serve the under-resourced as well. So we understand where your mission heart comes from, because you just told us about your upbringing. But why do you think it's so important now for you to teach your players how to give, and why being philanthropic is a skill? Like, it's a skill you have to learn.
Well, I mean, you think about this society, and everybody is so self-focused on this phone, and everything is so isolated and siloed and that type of thing. But there's no greater example in all of the world as leadership than my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and he was a servant leader,
Mhm.
right? And whether you believe or you don't, I mean, what a great example then to pour yourself into the lives of others, and be a servant leader. And I don't always get that right, but that's my heart. And I think that I think it's really important to put others first, in a society where everything is telling you to put yourself first. And it's and you know this, Debbie, where you feel your most whole as a person, and I know you felt this over and over again, is in the service of others, right?
Mhm.
In giving yourself to others and how you can serve those around you. And I love the amount of time and energy you've put into Special Olympics and the KYAL Foundation, and it's just with you have such a giving heart, and that's why I've always enjoyed our friendship, is how much you love pouring into other people. And I seek to be around people that set a good example for me and how to do that. And so, I don't always get that right, but I'm trying, right? And
Yeah, me too.
I want our players to see that. And I tell you what, I learned from some of them as well. We've got some amazing players that really are great at giving to others and putting others first. And man, what a great way to live your life in the service of
Mhm.
others.
Todd, I saw your team in November. I watched them at NC State. I made some specific travel around getting a chance to spend some time with you and your team. I went to practice. I went to the game. I enjoy it so much because I'm like you. I want to be surrounded by people that make me better, and you always make me better in
Uh,
lots of aspects. So thank you for everything that you've done, for your time, for your dedication to the KL Cancer Fund. The Mid American Conference tournament is coming up soon. You're going to have a top seed in this event. This is going to be an opportunity for you to go back to back. Give us 2 or 3 things that you have to do well to finish the season.
Yeah, I mean, this season has been about overcoming injuries and adversity, more injuries than we've ever faced as a program in my career. And I'm really proud of this group for being resilient. And, we always talk about adversity in sports. It's not real adversity. Adversity is getting a cancer diagnosis. That's real
Mhm.
adversity, or being a single mom trying to figure out how to feed your kids. So we always put it in perspective. But in terms of basketball adversity, our players have really responded. Um, you know, uh, at our best, we are good enough to win the tournament again and get to the NCAA tournament. Our margin for error is very small because of some of those injuries and that type of thing. But this group is continues to show up and be tough. And we're looking forward to the opportunity. It's a really tough. The top 8 seeds in the conference tournament in a Mid American Conference are going to be. There's no the first round games are going to be ridiculous. We're probably going to see some upsets. We just got to make sure we're not one of those. So it's truly survive and advance in a smaller scale at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse in Cleveland here in a few weeks, and we're excited to try and be our best at the right time, just like we were last year.
Todd Starkey, Kent State head coach, thank you so much for your time. We love having you. Welcome anytime on the podcast. We know for sure we'll see you somewhere along the road in the NCAA tournament, and then we'll see you in May on 24 Hours Nothing But Net. Thank you so much, Coach Starkey, for being with
Sound,
us on
sounds good. Always an honor to be with you, and I appreciate the invitation. Go Flashes!